Worse than Cannae, the forgotten bloodbath at Arausio, 105 BC. In 105 BC, Rome suffered a military catastrophe so devastating that it eclipsed even the horrors of Cannae. Tens of thousands were slaughtered in a single day, Roman pride shattered, and the Republic pushed to the brink. And yet, few remember the name Arausio. How did a mighty Roman force fall to invading Germanic tribes in one of history's worst defeats? Who were the men behind this disaster, and why does history so often forget them? Today, we uncover the truth behind the forgotten bloodbath at Arausio, an event that changed Rome forever but remains buried in its shadows. To understand Arausio, we must first examine the turbulent forces gathering beyond Rome's northern frontiers. By the late 2nd century BC, the Roman Republic was already a global power. Its legions had crushed Carthage, dominated Greece, and expanded deep into Gaul and Hispania. But beyond the Alps, a new threat was emerging, one Rome didn't fully understand. Around 113 BC, a massive tribal migration began. The Cimbri and Teutones, Germanic peoples likely from the Jutland Peninsula, began a slow, relentless push southward. Why they left their homeland remains a matter of speculation. Some point to climate shifts, others to population pressures. But one thing is clear: their movement destabilized everything in their path. Initially, the Romans saw them as just another barbarian threat, a problem that could be solved with legions and diplomacy. But these were not small war bands. They were entire nations on the move, with tens of thousands of warriors, women, and children. Their size, mobility, and unfamiliar tactics threw Roman assumptions into chaos. After several failed confrontations, including a humbling defeat at Noreia in 113 BC, Rome grew increasingly alarmed. The tribes continued west, clashing with other Gallic peoples and destabilizing Roman interests in southern Gaul. As the crisis deepened, the Senate took decisive action. Two commanders were appointed for 105 BC. Gnaeus Mallius Maximus, a novus homo, new man, from a non-aristocratic background, and Quintus Servilius Scipio, a patrician with deep senatorial connections. It was a volatile combination. From the start, they despised each other. Maximus had legal authority as consul, but Scipio refused to acknowledge his command. Personal pride, class prejudice, and political rivalry ensured that Rome would face the crisis not as one force, but as two bickering armies. The Battle of Arausio. The confrontation took place near Arausio, modern-day Orange, on the east bank of the Rhone River. The Cimbri and Teutones had crossed into Roman territory, and both commanders brought massive armies to meet them. Estimates vary, but combined Roman forces may have exceeded 80,000 soldiers, legionaries, allies, and auxiliaries. The tribal host was likely larger, possibly upwards of 120,000 warriors, not counting the non-combatants who followed. Here's where the disaster begins. Rather than coordinating, Maximus and Scipio set up separate camps. Scipio stationed his forces closer to the enemy, perhaps to assert dominance or ensure first contact. Maximus, cautious and politically aware, waited for reinforcements and tried to negotiate. The Germanic leaders, particularly Boiarix, offered talks. They asked for land to settle, peace in exchange for territory. Maximus considered the proposal, but Scipio saw it as cowardice. In an act of open defiance, Scipio launched a surprise attack on the tribal camp, without consulting Maximus. It was a disaster. Scipio's army was uncoordinated, the enemy prepared, and the terrain unfamiliar. The tribes quickly overwhelmed him, his legions routed and slaughtered. His forces were annihilated before Maximus could respond. Then, the tribes turned on Maximus. Already shaken and outnumbered, his men were trapped between the river and the enemy. With no room to maneuver, no clear command, and low morale, the Second Roman Army was crushed, almost entirely wiped out. Contemporary sources claim between 60,000 to 80,000 Roman soldiers and support personnel died in a single day. The slaughter was so complete that even the bodies couldn't be properly counted. Few survivors returned to tell the tale. The Battle of Arausio became Rome's bloodiest defeat, even worse than Cannae, where 50,000 were lost. But while Cannae became legend, Arausio became a stain. So how did Rome allow this to happen? First, political dysfunction. The rivalry between Maximus and Scipio was fatal. Despite facing an existential threat, their personal hatred prevented any unified strategy. Scipio's arrogance and Maximus's indecision created a vacuum that the tribes exploited. Second, underestimating the enemy. Roman commanders assumed the tribes were chaotic mobs. In reality, the Cimbri and Teutones were coordinated, strategically mobile, and driven by survival. Third, logistical failure. Rome fielded 2 huge armies but failed to supply, reinforce, or position them effectively. The divided camps gave the enemy the chance to strike one, then the other. And finally, no contingency. Once the attack began, Maximus had no time or plan to recover. His troops, caught between the river and the enemy, could neither retreat nor regroup. The result? Catastrophic loss of life, shattered morale, and panic in Rome. News of the defeat sent shockwaves through the Republic. It wasn't just a loss, it was a national trauma. The Roman public, already weary from years of war, now feared full invasion. The Senate feared the tribes would march on Italy. There was outrage at the commanders. Scipio, the patrician who started the battle, was stripped of citizenship, fined heavily, and exiled. His name became synonymous with arrogance and failure. Maximus's fate is less dramatic, but his reputation never recovered. Both men became cautionary tales of pride and incompetence. The Republic also took a hard look at its military system. Arausio revealed deep flaws in Rome's recruitment, command, and response mechanisms. And out of this chaos came a new kind of leader. Enter Gaius Marius, a general who would reform the Roman army from top to bottom. He abolished property requirements for soldiers, professionalized the legions, and trained them as cohesive units. The Marian reforms were born from Arausio's ashes. And the tribes? They didn't invade Italy right away. Instead, they moved into Hispania. But the clock was ticking. A new confrontation loomed. When they returned, they'd face a very different Rome, and a very different general. Arausio is more than just a forgotten battle. It's a lesson. A lesson in what happens when pride overrides strategy, when politics cripples defense, and when enemies are underestimated. It reminds us that even great empires can suffer humiliating collapse when ego overshadows unity. And yet, it was from this bloodbath that Rome would rise again, stronger and more disciplined than ever before. If you found this video interesting, don't miss our next video, Hannibal, Rome's greatest enemy, where we examine the genius behind Cannae and Rome's greatest existential threat. Hit subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts below. Was Arausio worse than Cannae? Do you think modern nations can learn from this kind of collapse? Let us know. History isn't just the past. It's the warning and the wisdom of everything that came before.